Oh, hi. It's me. Just a quick reminder that Valentine's Day is around the corner, and you know what that means. Time for you to get in trouble because you screwed up. I'm joking. If you're looking for the perfect treat for your sweetheart, Sunset Lake Sabadell is having a sweet sale on all their tasty, edible products. Now through February 9th, you can use the code Valentine26 and you will save 30% on all Sunset Lake's gummies, chocolate fudge, and even their Farmer's Roast infused coffee beans. These make great gifts because they're delicious and they also have utility, as in the Sabadell. In addition to the gummies that we all know and love, they've also released a limited edition citrus flavor of their popular Vibe gummies.
You want to vibe with your sweetheart on the night?
Yeah, it's a little THC in those Vibe gummies. Maybe you get the pre-date jitters. Maybe you get a little nervous. One of these new citrus Vibe gummies can help put your mind at ease. Or maybe you want to bring your date a box of sweets. Sunset Lake's full spectrum chocolate fudge is the perfect choice. I have partaken in the Vibe gummies on many occasions. It is the perfect amount of THC for me. Loosens me up a little bit. I don't, that's when I start to unbutton the second button of my shirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not safe for work.
Exactly. Sorry. The code again is Valentine26. That's Valentine26, no spaces. People love Sabadell as a gift. I've given it a lot of it, actually. It's Valentine26, no spaces. At sunsetlakesabadell.com, you will save 30% on all their edibles. The sale runs through February 9th at 11:59 p.m., so you got about a week. As always, see the site for full terms and conditions. Head over there. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description with that coupon code. Now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jamie Holmes, writer and author of The Free and the Dead, the untold story of the Black Seminole Chief, the indigenous rebel, and America's forgotten war. Also on the program, day 3 of a partial shutdown, Republicans teeing up a vote today. Meanwhile, a judge temporarily blocks Trump's rescission of temporary protected status for 330,000 Haitians. Thousands of Epstein docs taken down after they supposedly inadvertently identified victims. Meanwhile, a lot of people have a lot of things to answer for. Fulton County to sue the Trump regime over seizure of the 2020 election records. This after reports Tulsi Gabbard, who was sort of oddly on that trip, called Trump from the election site so he could talk to the FBI agents.
Put me on speaker.
I just happened to be in Atlanta.
This as Donald Trump calls for Republicans to take over federal elections. Well, just in the states I lost.
Seems bad.
Not all of them.
There are like 15 places.
Federal thugs in Minnesota now outfitted with body cams that come with still complete lack of accountability. French prosecutors raid X offices as part of the investigation into Grok's nude generations and algorithms. Maryland House passes a gerrymander for one more Democratic seat. Unclear if it gets Maryland Senate passage. Bill and Hillary Clinton, remember them? They've agreed to testify before Congress about Epstein. Maybe because he's not really featured prominently in this latest document dump. France issues warrants against 2 French Israelis charged with obstructing humanitarian aid to Gaza. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Newsday, Tuesday, kind of, not really. Because we have a guest, but excited about the guest.
Yeah, well, we'll cover some news as well. But
Yes.
there you go. I mean, it's Tuesday Newsday. We just do it because it rhymes.
Yes, exactly. As we've talked about, once the Trump 2.0 regime started, the amount of news that accumulates over the weekend makes it quite difficult for us to keep to our branding on the schedule front.
The format has been certainly tested over the course of the past, I want to say, 12 and a half months. And we're still figuring it out. And I don't know that we will actually figure it out. I have a feeling that's sort of the nature of the era we are in. But that's where we're at. Somebody's asking, are we going to cover the Sharkgate?
We did yesterday. And
Did we?
We did.
We didn't think it was that
Impressive.
It sounded like
No.
electronic disturbance.
Right.
You know, maybe there's other angles.
I mean, I do not think we need to get further into this story. Something stinks.
We'll wait. We'll wait for the Trump pooping cam. So we'll wait for that. In the meantime,
Laundry cam.
Ed Martin, you'll recall him. He was at one time the Washington, D.C. U.S. attorney. He is the one who got together with Pulte, who was over at the FHA. And they started doing all these hit jobs on people like Lisa Cook and Tish James by combing through their mortgage and trying to find some problem in their mortgages. Ed Martin has been demoted and is now down to like his portfolio is just like pardon lawyer at this point. Unclear what that means at the DOJ, but it does suggest that there has been some power balance within the DOJ that has changed. I don't know how relevant it is really, because it's really just like one set of cronies versus another set of cronies. But we haven't seen Pam Bondi out very much as of late. And it's unclear whether that's because maybe she screwed up something with the Epstein files, or maybe she's out of favor with Donald Trump at the moment. But the guy that's been sent out a lot is Todd Blanche. He is the number 2 at the DOJ, Deputy Attorney General. And just to remind you, it is February 3rd. So this time plus 3 weeks last year, he was Donald Trump's top defense attorney.
And he was the guy that paid a little visit to Ghislaine Maxwell, and she told him, "Oh, Trump's not implicated," pretty much. And then, coincidentally, she moved to a low-security prison. She got a puppy. Things worked out quite well for her.
Against all Bureau of Prison rules. So that just gives you a sense of where Todd Blanche's job is, and he made the mistake of acknowledging that on ABC's This Week. Sunday. This is number
4.
This is number. I'm sorry. This is number 3.
This was on then
excuse
Fox
me, sorry.
News.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is on Fox News. To give you a sense of what his job is, this is what he said on Fox News last night regarding the Epstein files.
Well, as some of the people we saw on camera at the rallies, is there any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in, relations with minors will be prosecuted?
Pause it for 1 second. I just want you to remember how she asked that question. Who partied with Epstein and engaged in relationships with minors, are they going to get in any type of trouble? And you're going to be very surprised to which part of that sentence Todd Blanche did not hear.
Relations with minors will be prosecuted.
Well,
Any
look,
chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein, and so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things, and if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have
Didn't look like
lunches
that's all
island.
that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if the photos could speak, some of them look pretty bad.
That's right. And unfortunately, photos can't speak. And so we need witnesses and we need
Are there
evidence
videotapes that you all have? Or
What do you mean you need witnesses? You have dozens and dozens of victims who are saying we are willing to cooperate right now.
And photos don't necessarily speak, but they sort of show. And that's what they do. But just in case you were wondering why he goes out and says this stuff, the 2 + 2 in this is 2 is he was Donald Trump's defense attorney. And the other 2 in this is that in many ways, he's still Donald Trump's defense attorney. This is him just 2 days ago.
America safe again. We're working hard every day, and those handful of investigations or cases you just show don't change that.
Those indictments of James Comey and Letitia James came after the president explicitly said they're guilty as hell and justice must be served right now. They came after career attorneys refused to bring the indictments, and both cases have been dismissed.
I mean, I don't know what it means to say to come after people. I mean, listen, if you're a prosecutor in the Department of Justice, you are expected to effectuate this administration's priorities. Like every single prosecutor in every administration, there are some prosecutors within the department who have chosen to leave. They don't want to do that. That is their right. That is fine. But if you're going to work in this department, you are going to execute on the president's priorities, and that's what we do. And yes, there are cases that have been dismissed by judges. They're under appeal. That's what happens in our system, and that doesn't make the case is wrong or right. It just means that they've been dismissed and they're under appeal.
Well, you just actually made my point right there. You said it's the president's priorities. The president calls for them publicly to be prosecuted, says they're guilty as hell, and then they're prosecuted.
No, that's not the president's priorities. That's a truth that he sent out. The president's priorities are executing on making America safe again. And that's what we're doing. And so when we go to prosecutors and we say, you are going to do violent crime, you are going to do
I don't think we need to hear any more at that point.
How would you define a priority? So the truth, what he says on Truth Social is distinct in some way from his opinions in other areas or his agenda? That seems quite odd.
His priorities are a function of how they are communicated. And it's just a total coincidence that they went after multiple people with completely loser cases that people resigned rather than take, that were dismissed summarily, that took multiple grand juries to try and find an indictment. And even at that point, they had to lie about what they got indicted and lie to the grand jury and to the judge. But they weren't listening to what the president said. It was just a coincidence because all he had put out was a truth post.
It's incredible that we're living through this moment in history where it's just basically taken as a given that the Department of Justice is going to basically function as a retribution vehicle for the pettiest man alive, who's a pedophile protector at the very least, and is declining before our very eyes. It's crumbling empire stuff, as is even this Epstein story, where you see how like he was a global elite and a connector and a fixer, and his influence network was very much within the crumbling world order that even Carney talked about, where it's like the Israeli intelligence, the military-industrial complex, like U.S. financial firms, and that kind of corruption. And these people being exposed in many ways is unmasking that like elite, that's transnational elite that rules us all outside of nation states.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more about the Epstein stuff going forward, on top of everything else.
I want Democrats to pull on the thread about QAnon potentially being a right-wing psychological operation, by the way. The fact that that Epstein met with the 4chan founder and was working this closely with Steve Bannon, it very much feels like that whole online phenomenon that radicalized so many online young men and conservatives was about deflecting from Trump's and Epstein's connections. And if Democrats take back power, they should really look into that.
Also, the Brexit stuff. Also, people should look into that. Epstein talking about buying on the way down after things collapse because of the Brexit vote. This stuff is. It's crazy. This blows the Nixon tapes out of the water.
Absolutely.
And I'm a big Nixon tapes fan.
Yeah, and I think to Emma's point, the way that this guy moved through the world and the people that he was, Larry Summers, for instance, has had as much influence on our economic policy over the past 15 years, maybe a little bit more, 17, as any individual in the country, maybe. And this guy was sort of trading different favors, including like seeking advice on how to date girls.
So pathetic.
But pathetic, but also like it just shows that there is just an immense amount of corruption built into the system. And it is, Matt Stoller had an interesting thread about how this is indicative of so many failed institutions across the board that allowed for someone like this to come in and short circuit all of the supposed trappings of the meritocracy and of the, I guess, the rules-based system.
And I saw Ryan Grimm's reply just really quickly saying it's no coincidence that this system that Epstein exploited, it really began with Iran-Contra. And with their involvement in arms dealing and stuff like that, that is where this all, I think you can trace it all back to.
And the failure of accountability. And we saw that sort of like crumble a little bit with Nixon. You got pardoned ultimately, bygones be bygones. But it was Iran-Contra where we really started to see the failure of these institutions to hold people accountable. But we will talk more about this in the coming days. We have a couple of sponsors, and after which we'll talk to Jamie Holmes, writer, author of The Free and the Dead, The Untold Story, The Black Seminole Chief, The Indigenous Rebel, and America's Forgotten War. Raise your hand if you've been putting off a dental cleaning. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
I was once told that I may be from New England, but my teeth are from Old England.
Annual checkup. Doctor's appointments. I know all you guys.
Yes.
When something feels off, you're tempted to just go online and self-diagnose. But this year, make yourself a promise. Go see a doctor, because it's so much easier now with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love. We're talking about booking in-network appointments at more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states. Doesn't matter whether you're looking for a dermatologist, a dentist, primary care, eye care, or some of the other 200 plus specialties offered on ZocDoc. You can easily search by specialty or symptom to build the care team that's right for you. You want to see a doctor in person? Great. Prefer a video visit? You can do that too. When you're ready, you can see their real-time availability and click to book instantly. Their calendar pops up. There's no going back and forth with the person who works at the front desk. And can you do Wednesday? Well, why don't you tell me the appointments you have? No, why don't you tell me all the free time you have? It's most awful. Appointments made through ZocDoc happen very quickly, typically within 24 to 72 hours booking. You can even score same day appointments. The beauty of ZocDoc is you can also see, do they take my insurance? Does this doctor have a good bedside manner? I mean, on and on and on. I used ZocDoc when I was on the road. I had a dental emergency. I've already talked about this. I found a great dentist. Bingo, bango. It was super easy to do. Both Emma and Matt have used the service to find doctors locally. And Brian's going to go see a dentist.
Can I do that via Zoom?
That's literally like the one. I want to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring today's episode and making it virtually impossible for Brian to say that he can't find a dentist. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com/majority to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/majority. ZocDoc.com/majority. Thanks, ZocDoc, for sponsoring this message, and we will put that link in the podcast and YouTube description. Also sponsoring the show today, I use this product like I don't know. There's not a day I go by where I'm not using one type of this product. I'm talking about Blue Land. A couple years ago, I was like, I need to have less plastic recycling. It started with that because you're in an apartment, you get a small little thing, and then one thing of laundry detergent from the supermarket, and
it's like
there's
your whole
no room.
recycling bin.
And also, it takes up such huge amounts of space in your cabinets. But then also you come to realize, like, we have a huge amount of microplastics in us. And not only is plastic ruining the oceans, something like 70% of all plastic that is in the planet now has been produced in the past like 10 or 15 years. It's nuts. So I made the switch to Blue Land across all the cleaning products in my house. We're talking, in Blue Land, we should say, on top of it being like, either in powder form or like little capsules form, and reusable bottles. It's a whole system of cleaning. On top of it, like helping get rid of plastic and saving space and frankly, money. Blue Land is 100% microplastic free. EPA Safer Choice certified formulas are safe to use around my kids, my cat, my plants, and they clean just as well as any other product I've ever had. Blue Land is a certified B Corp, certified cruelty-free by Leaping Bunny. It is trusted in over 1 million homes, including mine. They have tablets for your dishwasher. They have dish soap. They have hand soap. They have 3 types of everything cleaner, window cleaner, and antibacterial for the bathroom cleaner. You just drop a little tablet in. You can store like months of cleaning fluid in like a little tiny box like this. They also have toilet bombs. I mean, all their products are fantastic. I use all of those. Probably more. I just can't think off the top. Oh, laundry detergent tablets. They're great. Blue Land has a special offer for our listeners right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You don't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority, 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority. Get 15% off. We'll put the link in the code in the podcast and YouTube description. All right, quick break. Then we'll be talking to Jamie Holmes, writer, author of The Free and the Dead, The Untold Story of the Black Seminole Chief, the Indigenous Rebel, and America's Forgotten War. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Pleasure to welcome to the program Jamie Holmes, writer and author of The Free and the Dead, The Untold Story of the Black Seminole Chief, the Indigenous Rebel, and America's Forgotten War. They're the book in actual book form. Here.
Old-fashioned.
Oh, very old-fashioned. Well, it's a history book. And so, Jamie, welcome to the program. Let's just start with why don't we just discuss how you came upon this story? The Seminole Wars are just not ones that, frankly, I feel like we cover. This is not something that my kid is going through high school is ever going to hear about, as far as I can tell. What was it that drew you to this?
Thank you, first of all, for having me on. I don't remember what I was Googling, but I came upon a letter to the editor in the New York Times. I want to say it was written in 1991. It wasn't recent. And it said something to the effect of, there was a rainbow coalition in Florida in the 1800s between Native and African Americans that fought off the U.S. Army for 40 years, and nobody knows the story because of our Eurocentric view of history. That's what sort of set me off, and then I began to dig into the archives and what had been written about it. To your point, if you look in U.S. history books today, what you'll really see is usually you'll see a description that says the Seminole Osceola was the leader of the war, and he passed away, and there's a few sentences on it. Osceola was not a Seminole. He was not the leader. The story is so much richer and so much more interesting than it gets credit for. So I set out to tell the twin story of who Osceola was. I wanted to get behind the mythology of it and see who he really was, the historical person, not the mythologized character. And then the second person I started off focusing on was the Black Seminole Chief Abraham, whose Indian title is Sawanak Toskanuki, or Shawnee Warrior. That was my jumping off point. And then later I began to learn, as I got deeper into the research, the importance of the Mikazuki chief Sam Jones, who I focus on in the back half of the book. And I didn't realize his importance when I started off.
All right, well, let's set the table for us. We're in the 1810s, 20s. The United States has essentially purchased Florida at that point, but it is, I don't want to say it's like the Wild West, but it's sort of like the Wild West on some level. Yeah. And Andrew Jackson, who was president at that point, is dreaming of his retirement home, and so not really paying that much attention. Just to set the table for us and how this sort of story begins.
Yeah. So in American history books, there are three Seminole Wars. The first is 1817, 1818, 1835, 1842, and then the third, which is the focus of this book. And then the third is 1855, 1858. The Seminole Tribe of Florida refers to that entire period as the Long War, a period of colonial aggression. This in 1835, where the story really starts from, every territory east of the Mississippi River is a state, except for Florida and Michigan. So Florida is lagging. It was Spanish. It's formally U.S. territory in 1821. Florida doesn't become a state until 1845. There's only 35,000 people in the Florida territory at this time. 45% of those are enslaved people, and about 5,000 indigenous people known to the colonists as the Seminoles, but in reality constituting a number of different tribes, the Seminoles among them. And Yeah, in 1830, Andrew Jackson signs the Indian Removal Act into law, which nationalizes what was a more haphazard policy of removing families from their homes, achieved through coercive treaties and military actions and settlers crowding out the land. And so the story is the resistance of the Seminoles and their allies to this act of forced removal. More or less, they say, I'm really your friend, you have to leave, and if you don't leave, we're going to go to war, and we're going to force you out. And additionally, this attempts by private citizens under the sanction of people in the US government at high levels to enslave the Black Seminoles and transfer them to private plantations, private forced labor camps.
How many during the course of like that? I guess over the course of maybe the 15 years in there, I guess it is. How many indigenous people? Most of my understanding go to Oklahoma at that point, or are forced to Oklahoma.
That's right. Yeah, the population is estimated at 4,000 to 5,000 at the start of the war. In 1858, at the end of the Third Seminole War, the estimates that are about 600 people remain in the Everglades under the leadership of the Seminole chief William Bowlegs, Billy Bowlegs, also known as Holatomiko, and Chief Abiaka, also known as Sam Jones. So nearly everyone went west. But there was a core resistance that did win, that was unconquered, that never signed any surrender, and those descendants are still in Florida today, and that's their heritage, the unconquered people.
So let's start with Osceola, who is was miscategorized, like you say, as Seminole, but was in fact Creek. Tell us about him.
He comes out of the Red Sticks in what is now Alabama and Georgia. And his boyhood, he would have seen this split in the Creek people. So the Seminoles break off from the Creek Confederacy of the Muskogee people and come down in several waves, 1750s, 1790s, 1814, around then. And there's a split in the Creek people, and there's a war, 1813, 1814, between the Red Sticks, where Osceola comes out of, and the White Sticks, who are allied with then General Jackson. And there's a battle of Horseshoe Bend in which 800 Red Sticks are killed, and widows and children, Osceola among them, make their way down into Florida. Osceola's probably around 10 years old at this time, if you date his birth to 1804, which some people do. And he has a memory of this loss. He watched his people divided. He watched this, known of in any case, this brutal defeat. And then the general who is responsible for it becomes the president of the United States, sends down a functionary into Florida to give him this spiel about friendship. Really, they're trying to save money. They want them off the land cheaply without a war. And he is oriented towards payback, righteously so. He gets it. He does pay with his life. He dies of some ailment. We're not sure exactly what. In American newspapers and even abroad, he becomes the face of the war. And he becomes one of the most famous Native Americans in American history, in American history textbooks. Why is this? That's a question all on its own. Is at the start of the war, he's not a Creek. He's loyal to the Mikazuki chief, Sam Jones. Why? How did he become the face of the war? So part of the book deals with that. And as far as I could tell, it's because of a few actions that he is responsible for. He killed Wiley Thompson. He was a prominent voice in the meetings, the negotiations that they had. He was quite vocal. And he is useful to a degree to Americans who are trying to sell this as a war rather than a forced eviction of families, including women and children. It's a much better story to say here's a warrior and this is a war and he's brave, or he's whatever he is. He's quote unquote savage. However you frame it, whether you're sympathetic or not, a warrior and a war is a better story than what was actually done, which was this sort of brutal forced immigration.
It sounds very familiar. I mean, it literally, you could be describing Gaza today, the way it's described and the campaign of ethnic cleansing. But I don't have too much to add to that. Just wanted to point that out.
Well, and this is sort of another iteration of it's analogous to also to the lost cause, like the way that history wants to remember these things. It makes it much more palatable if this was two belligerent groups versus one of ethnic cleansing. And we should just say that Wiley Thompson that you mentioned was the Indian agent sent he was Jackson's so-called Indian agent sent down to, try and convince him to just leave, essentially.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about Abraham, or I'm not going to be able to say his other name, but I'm not even going to try. What are the implications of like there being freedmen? Like, were they freedmen, or were they who were these people?
Yeah. So again, to your point about what stories get told and which don't, there's a history of writers who discuss this story who more or less ignore the Black Seminole story as well. The population is comprised of several different quote unquote categories. There's Black Seminole royalty who are formally free, who have papers to document their freedom. That includes Abraham and his family, and a Black Seminole, I can't forget if he's a chief or sub-chief, Tony Barnett, I think he's a chief, and his family. Of the estimated 500 Black Seminoles who were there at the time, probably about 100 in these ratios. There are several different estimates of these ratios, but as best we know, 20% or 100 of those are servants. According to the old Muskogee way, this is not chattel enslavement. It's, as far as we know, the only requirement of this form of slavery is that you pay a portion of your crop, of your corn, as tribute, which sounds quite a bit like a tax to me, but not enslavement. And then 400 or 80% of those are self-emancipated, either people who freed themselves by escaping the plantations in Florida or further north, or children of POW, prisoners of wars who were captured, some by the Creeks, who allied with the British in the Revolutionary War. Their children, by the old Muskogee rules, could be full members of the tribe. But in essence, you have, when Florida drafts the state constitution, there's a clause in there, it wasn't passed this way, but that's how it was drafted, trying to ban all free Black people from entering the state. So unlike when the Spanish had it and you had 3 classes and a large population of free people of color, what Florida is trying to institute is really a 2-tier system of white settlers and enslaved people. So there's really no space for a group of 500 free Black people in the interior of Florida. So what they do is they pretend to be enslaved. They all pretend to have been purchased by the Seminoles. And if you look at their rights, the rights under chattel slavery generally, and these rules vary, movement is restricted. You need a pass. You cannot accumulate vast wealth. You can be sold and separated as property. And after 1831, after Nat Turner's rebellion, there are laws which ban the ability to teach an enslaved person to read. So if you compare them to what the Black Seminoles, the rights the Black Seminoles had, there was a law, according to Wiley Thompson, Jackson's Indian agent, that they could not be sold. Now, laws are broken, but there was a law against it. They traveled freely. They had vast livestock, and they were knowledgeable. Some of them were trilingual, bilingual. They were worldly. So all of that, and by the way, there's the governor of the territory of Florida is writing a letter. In one letter, he says, "They are slaves, but in name." So there's several references. Like, I knew I know a Seminole chief. He owns 80 quote unquote enslaved people. He is none the better for owning them. He's poor. He can't even afford to feed his own family. So the majority of them were free and pretending to have been purchased by the Seminoles for self-protection. Chief Abraham owned his son, Renty. So that tells you that Renty is not an enslaved person. This is protective ownership.
How did that, how was that arrangement made? Like, I mean, was it, it's, you know, like how sophisticated were they about creating? Did they create documents? I mean, like, what would have been the requirements for the Seminole to prove that they owned these freedmen, and how was that arrangement like struck? Or was it just that the Seminole know, like, we can see the writing on the wall and we just need as many sort of allies as we can get?
Yeah, so there's an old Spanish policy beginning in the late 1600s, which would recognize civil rights in exchange for military service. I think you had to say you were Catholic, but enslaved people who escaped down into Spanish Florida could say they were Catholic, fight in the militia, and they would recognize their civil rights. So there's a history in Florida, and the British do this as well, of exchanging civil rights for soldiery. You know, this is in the United States today. You can get a track to citizenship if you serve in the armed forces. So what it looks like is that part of the story is that the Seminoles just adopt this policy. We are welcome. A gun is a gun in Florida. Come down, we'll grow our military, and you'll be offered some protection under Abraham and in these allied villages. But the situation, the question you're asking is, how do you prove, and the answer is that they can't. So if you're a POW or a child of a POW taken in a raid, or if you've liberated yourself, there's no documentation on you. So this is, in a way, is a double-edged sword, because nobody can prove that they own you, but also you're vulnerable. There's a book called Rogue's Paradise, which talks about how kind of lawless Florida was at the time. There are a lot of profiteers, there are speculators, there are people who see the Black Seminole population as a vulnerable population and who are making claims on them. The former Indian agent Gad Humphreys illegally enslaves 29 Black Seminoles on his private plantation. So in Abraham's case, there's a newspaper article which says that his freedom papers trace to Alabama. Later on, he says there's credible evidence that he was born among the Seminoles. He's asked directly in 1852. He says, I don't know where I was born, but I was born among the Seminoles. The reporter says that that language, which is the Muskogee language, is his mother tongue. So I believe that that document was forged, because you would have to take that document and go to the cities or the army bases, and you would want it recorded in the record books. So there is a record book in which Abraham must have presented that document to secure his formal emancipation. But the lack of documentation is a constant problem for them throughout this period, and when they travel west to the Indian Territory, what became Oklahoma.
That documentation became a problem because they were going through territories, or I should say states at that point, that are, when they see a Black person, they're like, oh, you're a runaway slave.
The claims on them continue, even when they head west. Some of those claims are being made by Creeks, who have adopted the ways of chattel slavery. Some of them are quote unquote half-breeds, right? You have settlers having children, and some of those, part of the schism in the Creek Nation is that you have a group who are starting to adopt the ways of chattel slavery. So some of those claims are being made on the Black Seminoles by Creeks in the West. But yeah, that happens. That's something. There's a group of them that actually go down to Mexico, in which slavery has been outlawed, to escape those persistent claims.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering, in the dealings with the Americans, were you able to trace some sort of understanding of like how dealing with Spanish colonizers versus the Americans versus what Andrew Jackson was trying to do here. How did the Seminoles differentiate in their dealings with these two colonizing groups, and is there anything that informs the other?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a historian of early Florida named Jane Landers at Vanderbilt. She did an interview. She said something like, "It's difficult for the American audience to understand that neither the Seminoles nor the Spanish nor the Black Seminoles thought of themselves as slaves. Only the Americans did."
Right.
I found that they were very discerning. So first of all, when America takes over in 1821, a lot of free people of color leave and they go to the Bahamas. They know what it means. They know that the relative freedom under Spanish rule is not going to persist, and they exit. At the beginning of the war, Black Seminole envoys went to the settlers that they liked, that they had good relationships with, and warned them. So they were discerning in that sense. There's another description of attacks on shipwrecks on the coast, in which there's a French ship that wrecks on the coast and they're spared because they're not American. So the Seminoles know very well that the ideas about skin color that the Americans are bringing are quite different. There's a Claudio Sant, who's an expert on the Creek Nation and generally on indigenous people. He has a scholarly article which is titled something like, "The British are of a mind to make slaves of them all." So this is what the Americans inherited. It really was it was a much more brutal and polarized idea of what we still call race that they were bringing.
All right, let's move forward in the story to John Horse and to tell us about him.
John Horse is a Seminole sub-chief. He is Afro-Indigenous. His mother was a Black Seminole. His father was a Seminole, we think, one of the tribesmen. There's a lore about John Horse because he's one of the people that travel to Mexico, I want to say in 1850, to escape these claims that I was talking about. There's a story of him when he's young. He's also known as Gopher John. His Indian name is Hokepis Hajo. There's a story of him selling the same two gopher turtles to a military officer again and again. The officer puts them in the cage and they escape and he sells them back the next day. There's a lot of lore around him. The scholar Kenneth Porter, who has written about this and is sort of the source of the strand of historical research that focuses on the Black Seminoles on the left, writes extensively about John Horse. I don't write much about him. I don't follow him much. It's mostly Abraham, but he's one of the figures, and he also commands 15 warriors. So he's one of the fighters as well. And he was involved in the jailbreak in November 1837, in which 20 prisoners of the U.S. Army escape out of the Castelo de San Marcos, this massive Spanish fort in St. Augustine, by climbing out of this small loophole in the wall and making a rope out of their bed covers. And two women were involved in that escape as well during the night. This very dramatic escape in late November 1837.
And I guess lastly, like, where do we end up? What is towards the end of this, as the sort of like we remain with 600 Seminole in the, how was it just a question of we're moving into a different part of Florida and we're out of like eyesight, but how do we get to the point of where I guess the Seminole just no longer represent a threat to the newly created state?
Yeah, the U.S. government more or less gives up and declares victory. It's sort of a unilateral surrender. What happens in Florida is, so in the Second Seminole War, there's about 1,500 regular deaths, soldiers who die. Only about 330 of those are combat deaths. So the majority of deaths are happening because of Florida, because they're getting sick. Malaria, disease unknown, is often recorded. What happens in 58 and the way in which Sam Jones, Chief of Biaka, was able to wear down the army was because they set up towns in the Everglades on these hammocks, these kind of tree islands, and they would carve out places for villages and places to grow things and places for cattle and to live within these that you couldn't see from the outside. And they had a network of canoes. So whenever one spot was discovered, they would go to another spot. And the army couldn't catch them. And so it became a test of wills. It became a war of attrition where you're sort of wandering around, dying of disease, not finding anyone. And this was land that the settlers couldn't farm on anyway. The Everglades, even after it was drained, a lot of that land is not farmable. So the argument, it became a question of, to what degree is this worth the cost in lives and in treasure? And the government has just decided it wasn't. In 42, when the Second Seminole War ends, Tyler makes a speech and he says something like, "We've won, and it's very noble of us to leave those remaining there because it's a noble restraint." But really, they were worn down, and the country was tired of the war, and so they just gave up.
I mean, in many respects, it's sort of like our first Vietnam. In the parallels there are pretty striking. And what ultimately became, as we go forward of not just of Jones, but I mean of those Seminole who are basically hiding in the Everglades or unreachable because the land they have at that point is not worth to the colonial project what the cost associated would be, essentially, at least at that time.
Yeah, the Seminole tribe of Florida and the Mikazukis of Florida today, those are the descendants of those survivors. And there's a Seminole Nation in Oklahoma too. So they, in the 1950s, I think 100 years later or something, there was some ceremonial signing in which the state of Florida and the tribes and the chiefs sort of agree to put the past behind them. But they exit the Everglades. Part of the Everglades is drained, and their oral histories are recorded in the 1950s. And it becomes the Seminole tribe of Florida and the Mikazukis of Florida.
It's a fascinating story. Jamie Holmes, writer, author, The Free and the Dead, The Untold Story of the Black Seminole Chief, the Indigenous Rebel, and America's Forgotten War. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. That was fun. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head into the
fun half.
I don't know. It's going to call it the despondent hour.
Yes.
It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
What was that about again?
That was when people were asking about the Epstein files after a bunch of people died in a flood in Texas.
Oh my God, right. Trump, who respects the sanctity of all
really
of those
care. I
things.
definitely thought about all those people that died because of the negligence of Texas public authorities not doing sirens for floods. I've thought about them a lot.
Like after the LA wildfires, when he went there and just kept talking about sweeping up the the leaves, he's just, natural disasters can't conjure much from him.
We'll get into this, but I should just tell you that I have on my calendar.
Oh, yes.
let me just double check here. But where did I have it? Oh, yesterday I had Trump getting his juice. So I don't know. He was around this weekend though, right? But is he out in public today?
Did some phone interviews I saw. I did Bongino.
But he
He did a
did
press
on the
conference in
phone.
the Oval Office today.
he did.
Bongino's
Sitting down.
on video, I think.
That's the notable change is he keeps doing these press conferences from the Oval Office every time, so he doesn't have to get up.
Well,
Every
also so they can
American
clean up
was
they can clean up after.
Yeah. I thought we weren't buying that.
I'm not buying it.
It's just fun.
Let's put it this
I'm
way.
selling it.
Apparently
I'm not,
he
I'm not
does
saying I'm not saying
smell.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that clip
Yeah, I agree.
is indicative of him pooping his pants. But I'm also
does.
not saying that it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just from the way that he waddles, you can tell he's got a diaper on and there's probably some extra baggage.
Somebody made the point that like when we played that yesterday, we didn't do the video all the way through because everybody gets ushered out of there immediately after that. Because he does say at the end, I watched the tape again, just, out of curiosity. He does go, oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, everybody. Okay, thank you. We're all good. Okay, everybody out. It just kept like, and
Susie Wiles walks in with a big bag.
Right, right. Susie, open that window for me.
We've all been in compromised situations,
No,
and if
not
you
me.
have the ability, to say like, okay, it's good seeing you, everybody. Goodbye. I got a lot of stuff to do, which is what he says. It did feel like he was trying to get everybody out of the room,
Maybe-
but also like,
Yeah.
one way if you really need people out of the room is you stand up and you usher people out. But if you can't stand up, you start waving like, okay, everybody go, everybody go.
I shouldn't even step to you on this. Like you have a sixth sense with fecal matters.
That's actually true. I can pick up on
I think that's one of the regular senses.
Yeah.
Through the TV though?
Folks.
This is what I'm saying. This is your superpower. Some people can shapeshift and fly. You can tell when somebody shit their pants.
I mean, I have one or two other talents like that. Also, I can tell when people pee themselves, but that's much easier.
That's a lot easier.
Folks, it's your support that makes the show possible. If you want to more of this great content, join themajorityreport.com. It's your donations that help the show survive and thrive. And if you listen to the show a couple of times a week or you watch the show a couple of times a week, become a member. You not only get the free show free of commercials, but you also get to IM us in the fun half, things like Punch Drunk Pulpit, who just wrote Sam Smelter.
Fecal man. Sam Fecal man. That's anti-Semitic.
Legalize comedy.
JustCoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee. Hot chocolate.
I don't want to
Use
get
the
banned
coupon
from
code.
YouTube.
Use the coupon code. Majority to get 10% off. JustCoffee.coop. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Lechian? That's Lech.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I put the German on it. Left Reckoning is coming up right after Majority Report. Today we have Ben Fong and Paul Prescott on talking about a new book of speeches from Bayard Rustin that includes commentary on speeches. A really great book, Bayard Rustin, a very interesting thinker. And also, Texas Politics Giveth and Taketh Away. We talk about Taylor Remett's success. David has a inside view of that. And also, Colin Allred's frankly embarrassing a little foray into being offended that apparently has entire Senate primary up in a tizzy down in Texas. Another embarrassing chapter in Democratic Party id poll politics, in my opinion. Pathology is on display over there. So check that out right after the show today.
I think we're probably going to be talking about that
We
that
should.
video he cut too. Impressive stuff.
Steam coming off of his head, and I'm pretty steamed too.
If you're going to come for me, you better come for me.
Oh yeah, it was that energy, but it's actually somehow worse. Because
It was worse because it was so like just manufactured. It was so like exhausting.
He looked like right before he hit record, he was like, "What am I supposed to be mad about?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. Corporations ate my baby on the IM says Sam P. Durr. So there you go. Folks, see you in the fun half.